Okay, I'm going to make another one of these little famous videos of mine for my daughter. I've made a few of them. I haven't made one in a while. I've wanted to. I sometimes I just make up the topic as I go. The several ones that I haven't made, I kind of miss what I was going to say. So, but it's kind of like one of them things where don't get a lot of chance to do that. This coffee is hot. I know that people push coffee. I'm not a big coffee drinker. Never have been. Don't get me wrong. I can drink it like water. It's mostly decaf. Some people don't think, wow, I like the flavor of coffee. I always have. Been drinking it since I was a kid. But we're not here about that. But since we are here about that, I'm going to give you my secret coffee recipe that I've been using off and on. So basically, what I've been doing is I've tried different things. I've tried different kinds of mixed drinks of water and juice and stuff like that. And non-alcoholic, because usually I'll take them to work or drink them here around the house. And sometimes other stuff makes me tired. So, over the last few years, I barely drink caffeinated coffee. Sometimes I will have one, or sometimes you get one of those frappes from one of those famous places, and it's all powder mixed in. So you're getting a big caffeine boost. And nothing against all that. I don't usually need it unless I'm trying to stay awake on the weekend. But every now and then, I just use a little shot. So my secret recipe, of course, there's hot chocolate in here. Shh, don't tell anybody. Anyways, it's just a pinch, and I don't always put the caffeine. I put a little pinch of caffeine, put a spoon of decaf for more flavor, sometimes 2 spoons if you want the heavy, robust coffee flavor. And I got some hot chocolate mixed in there. So basically, that's what's in that secret cup of coffee brew. And, I kind of like the combination of stuff. My mom used to have Post when we was kids. Sometimes we'd have hot chocolate, blah, 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 all that stuff. I was listening to a video years ago. Apparently, one time, hot chocolate was like a drink of the rich and the kings. I'm like, no kidding, because it was hard to come by. Back in the day, common people didn't have that access to it because it was imported from a far distance. So when it did come in, it was expensive. And when I found out, I'm like, oh, it makes sense, All the good things in life used to belong to the rich and the wealthy and the royalty, They attribute it all to smoking, white bread, and coffee and chocolate, especially some of the other stuff, salt, sugars, all that stuff. Other people for food had to use just regular herbs because they couldn't always get sugars and salts, from what I understand, at least depending on where you were in the world, how far it had to be imported or exported, and how wealthy you were. But anyways, we're not here about that. I just thought I should throw that in there. And I'm like, that sounds good. And the other stuff, I kind of like, oh, I remember this from 20 years ago. Let's put it in there. That's a nice thing about getting older. You always got more stories to tell. Sometimes more than you need to. Sometimes I don't have enough to tell. But anyway, so I was just kind of making this video for fun, entertainment. Try to inspire my daughter a little. The coffee thing I threw in there because I thought I should. Instead of making a separate video, I scratched my head. Now it itches. I hate that. Long story short, this pandemic has been going on. I did look it up. It's a real word because one day it kept, everybody saying pandemic. And I get that. We all know what that is. But it kept coming to me. I was at work and I'm like, pandemic. So I looked it up, and it is the implication of a pandemic and factuality. At least it was Googled. So at first I thought it was a made-up word myself because I've done that when I was a kid. Sometimes I'd make up a word and like, it's not a word. And, it spells out right. But some words are really words. They're just not classified as legal words in certain languages or dictionaries, but they're still words if you can say them and hear them and understand them. Some people would not understand that word if I said pandemia, and others would. That's why I decided to look it up, and it said it's a word and has a definition, so I thought that was unique and funny. But unlike the actual pandemic that's going on, which is not funny, the sad part about it all, sorry to everybody that's lost anybody to the pandemic, the flu, viruses of any kind, and anybody that's lost family, friends, anywhere in the world. The sad part is overshadows everything. Like, that's all you see on the TV and the news. You can't even get the statistics for the regular flu virus. You can't. I've heard people going to the hospital and they're checking people and they're sending them away because they didn't have the flu. And it's like they wanted to be treated because they were sick for something else, or They've got other issues, and some of the hospitals were like, well, you ain't got the flu, we're sending you away. Like, are you kidding me? So maybe that's just certain areas, but I'm sure other people have experienced, if people that I know have talked about it, it's happened other places. Factuality, usually how it goes that way. Well, the other thing that gets me is this controversy of wear a mask, don't wear a mask. All these experts, right now our workplace is saying wear a mask, so we got to wear a mask. A lot of retailers are, and some places, I like the voluntary thing. But if you're sick, wear a mask. If you're susceptible to that stuff, wear a mask. Change it, wash it, change them, clean them. Basic cleanliness is very important. But across the board, I just can't believe that, from the get-go, a lot of people believe that this is made up, manufactured. And when I say that, I mean the virus itself, that it was expanded from scientists, and many news reports have showed it on many stations, not just the internet news, which sometimes is more factual than some of the other regular news when you find out later in life and history. But what gets me is the controversy of how many people, they just think it's natural. And they've even said that the scientists have been doing experiments on this stuff, and there's proof backing it, that people were hired to do research on this stuff, and they were paid money to do research on this stuff. And whether it was done intentional to create other vaccines, I mean, God forbid, I hope it's not a bio weapon. I mean, obviously it's some kind of biohazard, and it's taken over parts of the world. And when you hear of other countries, like they said, I don't remember the source, but it said Taiwan, Finland, Norway, and a couple other ones were some that are smaller countries that's had the least spread, because they quarantined the people at home, tracked them with a cell phone, called them to make sure that they were staying at home, checked on them to make sure they were okay. And it's kind of like, traditionally schools, people send their kids to school sick because they want them to be tougher, or they don't want to pay a sitter, or don't have the money to. I get that, but there's times I've heard even certain schools where the kids get there and the nurse finds out they got a fever. Well, clearly in the school policy is if you've had a fever, you're not supposed to go to school within 24 hours. Well, many times the kids got to school and they already had the fever, so the parents either knew it or didn't know it, and they sent the kid to school. I get that, it happens, but 3/4 of the kids usually end up getting sick in a class, if not the whole class. So I understand why they stopped schools and all this other stuff to make distancing, because, I mean, there's people at work that come up to you before we did the mask thing, and they're sick, and they're coming right up on you to talk to you. Well, they don't regularly talk to you unless they're sick, and then so they want to come right up and be right next to you. So I get the mask thing, and I understand that. It happens. But, I mean, don't get in people's faces if you're sick. Cough on your shoulder, cough to the ground. We've been doing that for years before we started getting all this advice. Gargling with salt water, I've done that off and on for years, especially if you work around dust and dirt. I keep a bottle in my walker sometimes. I'll definitely keep it beside the sink. Sometimes I'll keep it in the car, and I've done that for years. When this stuff was hitting, I was drinking a lot of cooler water when I get to work sometimes, but I was, we'll say, sick around February, March a little bit, and I started sipping the hot water just on a hunch, because I wasn't feeling good and all that stuff. And then later I found out that was one of the recommended things. Besides taking some Alka-Seltzer and gargling with that and salt water. And, I had some trouble sleeping, like I had before with respiratory stuff. So I slept when I was sitting up. I had the Vicks Vapor Rub. I've been using this little garlic hack where they showed where you keep garlic, if you got a sinus infection, keep garlic outside your nose I did it for a few hours. Seemed like it helped get rid of the infection. A lot of that potentially could be linked to dairy. I'm not a doctor, but potentially if you're eating too much dairy at certain times, or if you're over sugarcoating yourself, eating too many sugars, it lowers your tolerance. That's even been on some of the doctor shows. So you might want to investigate that further. Cut back on your sweets when this stuff's going around. Check on the garlic. If you got a lot of sinus going on from eating too much dairy, you might want to cut back on that stuff. I'm not saying it's factual. I'm saying for me, that what helps me. That's what works. The salt water. For a while there, my lungs were bothering me. I was using the Vicks Vapor Rub around my nose. I was using it on my chest. I was using a hot water bottle. It was very uncomfortable at times, but I hadn't done that in years. Where I put the hot water bottle on my chest, and who knows, maybe it helped. It didn't seem to hurt. At times, it was hard to breathe, but I left it on there, and I lived through it. I had to cough for about a week and a half. My daughter ended up getting a cough for like 3 weeks. I thought she had it first from school, but she tries to say that she got it from me. But she had a cough for 3 weeks. She'd been to the doctor for sure before I went. She'd been there once and then twice after. And I just happened to get checked. He said I had a respiratory. We still don't know exactly what she had, but she had to get 3 different medicines before her cough went away. And I had taken Mucinex, the variation of Mucinex, like twice. Just one pill. One here, one there. And I had a 15-minute coughing jag twice. And the second time I did it, I coughed so much. I swear to God, I felt like I was beaten. Like for about an hour, hour and a half, I didn't feel like I could do anything or move because it felt like people had kind of beat on me. And, but after that week and a half, man, I felt good. I had also been eating pieces of garlic, usually like the ones in the olives. I love that stuff. But I was getting to where, sometimes if you get the lung phlegm, I eat a couple of them off and on throughout the day and it gets good. Well, I was getting to where I was eating 6 to 10 pieces of that a day because it just wasn't getting rid of that phlegm. It felt like it was stuck right up here. So I was eating 10 pieces of that garlic and olives a day. And I've been eating 1 or 2 off and on since then for the last month. Today's May 15th, so about a month and a half off and on. Sometimes I'll skip a couple of days just to help because one of my friends done herbology. She told me a long time ago that's the closest thing to your antibiotics is the garlic. So I've been trying to keep that in my system. And some people say the lightly cooked is better, and other people say the raw is. It depends on what you can handle. If you can mix it in your food. I mean, I've heard people swear by garlic for years and years and years. So, and other herbs, believe me, I wish I knew more about herbology and all that stuff and had some more experts on hand. And, usually I'll Google search at YouTube, all that stuff. I suggest you do the same. Long story short, this is just, stuff that I like talking about for my daughter that she can listen to someday, or you. If it helps you in any way, shape, or form, no matter who you are. If you made it this far in my video, awesome. I don't usually take the time to go back and watch it, but sometimes I do. So it's just kind of like when I started this, and I wish I would have done it years before that, and I wish I could get more videos out, but I don't always. I mean, I shared my secret coffee recipe with you right now. I mean, you could probably get the ground coffee beans and grind them yourself and make your own bistro. I always thought that was kind of cool, those bistro machines, but I haven't got one because I don't drink a lot of coffee. But, I mean, if it's geared towards the decaf, sometimes it's unnecessary to have all that caffeine. Once you're used to it, there's times years ago, I mean, we're going to say 30 years ago, I was drinking 2 thermoses of coffee a night. And on the weekends, I would barely get any. I would get a sore neck and headaches and stuff. It's like caffeine coffee withdrawals. Man, it took me a while to figure out what was even causing it. One of my friends told me, he ain't even into all this stuff. But the point is, that stuff's real. You're just getting too many neck pains and stuff like that. So, of course, I just started drinking a little bit more coffee on the weekend. Now, what I didn't know is back then I smoked and I'd eat bad. And I didn't realize a lot of that was the smoking itself was taking oxygen out of the body. I even know I was taking vitamins and I was eating too much food, even though sometimes I would eat my salads and stuff like that. I was eating too much other volume of food. Sometimes I don't want to get into everything, but we'll say I was taking 3 sandwiches a day to work and 3 to 5 little Debbie cakes sometimes, So I'd have an apple in there. Sometimes I'd eat it, sometimes I wouldn't, other snacks. I mean, I'd eat 5, 6 meals a day sometimes. And then somewhere in there, I ate little Debbie cakes for like 10 years. And then, for sure, probably longer than that, but sometime after like 80s, late 80s, we'll say 87, 86, I probably ate them things till like 98. And then something happened. I got like a little bit of cold or something like that and got sick for a little while. And I gave up little Debbie cakes for sure about 10 years. But I went through a thing where I lost weight about a year and a half. I mean, I had to be close to 300. But I didn't even really weigh myself at the time. And it took me about a year and a half to lose weight. And I was down to like, we'll say 204 is what I got down to for a couple of years. And after that, it took sometime after, we'll say, that was around 98, 99. Sometime after 04, 05, I'd say I was probably back up to 220. And then it just grows from there. If you don't eat the right stuff, exercise, food is very addictive. And that's not why I made the video, but since we're going with that, and eating before sleeping and working an off shift, seconds or thirds, if you don't watch what you eat and eat small quantities or portions and eat healthier and get your exercise and work out, you're going to put on a few pounds, which is, nothing to be ashamed of. It's most of America. And that's not what this video is about. But since we're on the topic, let's make it about that. Gotta get this. I drink coffee like water once it's cool. That's why those frappes and stuff, especially the cold ones, Give me about 2 minutes. It's like, whoop, gone. But anyways, long story short, certain foods can be very addictive. I noticed that years ago. I mean, even when I was eating fish, boom, I felt like I could eat 100 more fish. We won't get into all the principles of, fish eat a lot of fish. Maybe that's why you want to eat more fish. I don't know. But time will tell. But what's funny with that is, a lot of other farm animals eat vegetables and stuff like that. And if you're eating, say you're eating a nice burger or steak, you're not going to go out and eat a bunch of corn and vegetables, are you? Maybe you would. I don't know. I used to eat a lot of corn too. It's in everything. It's mixed in a lot of foods. It's a filler. It's oil. It's corn oil. Everything. It's whatever. Long story short, it's they say high fructose corn syrup's a sweetener and it's everything. And fructose is just the fact that it's a syrup. So anything that's turned from a solid to a syrup could be a fructose. That's what a friend told me. Long story short, I'm no scientist. Maybe you are. Maybe you know more about it. I'm not saying what's good or bad. I'm not trying to give you any kind of advice, except for maybe check it for yourself. If you want to drop weight, watch what you eat. I've seen famous people say that. It's kind of like the concept of a computer for programming. Back when you did basic programming, before they had programs to help you program, which are awesome if you're doing that. If you put garbage in the computer, you're going to get garbage out of the computer because it's not going to know what the heck's going on. Sometimes that's with their bodies. I mean, if you look at the government standard, and let's just say, like, we'll say mine says it's supposed to be 170, but I'm 200 and I feel comfortable and I'm healthy and your blood works good, nothing to worry about. Get your stuff checked out, find out. But, I mean, if you're a vegetarian and vegan, hey, your blood work's even going to even be better. I'm on day over 318 now. No meats. Still doing the eggs and the cheese, yeah. But you got to get the proteins. You got to make sure you get your vitamin Bs and your vitamin Ds for sure. And I don't even know what all that's in. So the proteins are good, but I'm not getting enough protein sometimes. I know that, especially for my young age. It's good to have more proteins. But you also, if you just go to proteins, you got to make sure. And I got this idea from the ideal protein diet of you got to make sure you get your calcium, magnesium, potassium, your multivitamins, and if you're eating too much protein, you're going to want a little bit of the red juice. I don't mean wine. I mean cranberry juice for color. Because if you're eating like 50 to 80 proteins a day, you can lose weight, and also you're going to have more energy. But you got to be careful because I've heard that the proteins can wear down on your bones. So you check with your doctor, you Google it, you find out. I know most of the workout stuff has all that stuff in there besides multivitamins. It has probably even more than that, but that was the main things I remember from the Ideal Coach. It was a good plan. I mean, when I've tried like 5 main little diets over 13 years, and that was one of them I did for 3 weeks, but it got expensive because it was by the pack. And for me at the time, especially when you got a kid, girlfriend, they're all different diets. You could do the packs 3 to 5 times a day, whatever, but then you could do your 6 ounces of chicken. And of course, I'm not eating chicken now, but you could eat many pickles and lettuce as you wanted, and it was all portion and food control, which if you do that on your own, you don't really need a diet. Check with your doctor, check with a dietitian. But long story short, what I'm saying is it's all about what you put in your diet, in your diet, in your body. So if you sit there and you decide you're going to fast or go to almost no food, try and make it something healthy. Some people have done that with peanuts and other stuff, and if you're actually going to do that, vegetables are really filling. I'm finding out for the last couple of years when I've been eating more. And man, sometimes carrots and celery, a couple other things. If you're eating them raw, especially, like, hey, maybe you should lightly cook them and steam them. I don't know, but sometimes it's just hard to eat that stuff where it's very filling, and some of the other vegetables are too. Especially, I mean, back a dozen years ago, I cut back 80% on my sugars for 2 years. I gave up ice cream for 6 months. I barely ate extra sugars for 2 years. I was almost 80% sugar free, and I was feeling great, especially in the heat of the summertime. It was more tolerable, and we're going to say I probably was 50, 60 pounds lighter then. But the concept is, I've only started this thing 318 days ago. Now, if I sit there and get in a good exercise routine going, because when I'm at work, I walk, I'm on my feet all day. But if I get a little bit of exercise routine going, they say 5 to 20 minutes a day, or however you want to do it, 3 times a week, just something. walking. I get a lot of walking in. But long story short, if you do something like that, keep yourself moving and you're eating smaller portions. Sometimes I'll eat 6 to 8 small meals a day. And when I can stick to that, that's better. But definitely eating before sleep has been a hindrance for me. This video might cut off because of this certain camera. I don't know why, if it's just this. I've never had a camera that really did it before, this Motorola, but it might be the programming. And for some reason, it'll cut off after 27 minutes. We're at 20. Long story short, that's the highlights of the situation. I mean, it's what you put in your body. So if you sit there and start eating vegetables and plant-based, your fruits and the nuts and stuff like that, your body's going to get more nutrition across the board. Stuff they've been saying for years. Of course, everybody's saying a balanced diet. If you choose to eat meats and dairy, that's fine. That's your life. But if you have any kind of potentially heart attack or stroke issues, from what I've heard, from what I've researched, just from my videos, not from a doctor standpoint, you should really probably skip all that meats and dairies and stuff like that. And I mean, do your own research, find your own doctor, find your own support group for that. But my dad had passed away in 2011 from a stroke, so I researched as many videos as I could. I've seen those videos on Netflix, the fork and the spoon and the traveling, and I don't even remember all their names. I'm more likely to believe them than some of the doctors and scientists and everybody that's, pro all this, and a lot of people in America are big and overweight, and they've been saying it for years that our country's worse than any other one. And you got parents years ago protesting because they want their kids to get fast food in school, and I mean, I would have loved it when I was a kid. But as you get older and you're educated a little bit, at least on the diet thing, I can see why they didn't, But even having homemade food in school is better than the processed stuff. But you shouldn't eliminate vegetables. I can see having Pizza Friday or whatever. They should still offer salads, vegetables, and stuff like that, at least to the kids, that they can get to eat them. And, I don't know how many vegetables you need when you're a kid, but, some countries, the kids ain't getting anything, or hardly any food. So if we could get the fruits, nuts, vegetables, the plant-based diet, at least the basics of it for sides for everybody, it's got to help. It's got to help. And that's the concept. It's all about what's helping. And then when I've seen other videos, this Dr. Furman, WVIZ, he had some videos on there about mentioning, he was one of the main sources that said, skip the meats and the dairies, especially if you've got a condition. And that's the big thing. Until it clears. Once it clears, they go back to it. But it could take you 5 to 10 years or the rest of your life to get a condition to clear if it's that bad. So, I mean, once you've had your tests, your MRIs, experts have checked you, or if it's hereditary to your family, I mean, it's something to investigate. Don't wait till it's too late. So that's what we're saying, If you got a condition that needs looking at, see a doctor. It's very important. I mean, don't be afraid to go to a chiropractor, but seek advice from a medical doctor too. And the chiropractors ain't necessarily going to help you with that stuff, but they know a lot of stuff too. Kinesiology, they know certain supplements, the more natural way. And I'm just saying, both are very necessary for any condition you have, and it depends on what you need at the moment. Don't be afraid of going to the doctor or the chiropractor. Don't be afraid of going to a dietitian. Don't be afraid of eating healthy. It's kind of like for people out there that may have rolled sober, don't be afraid to go to a church, a synagogue. Don't be afraid to get spiritual advice. And if you don't want to do any of that, then call a counselor. There's networks available. I'm just saying, there's many things that people can do. They don't have to. It's what you choose to do. Don't sit there alone and bored by yourself. At least make friends. Make friends that have similar interests to you. If that's what you're into, that's what you're into. Hey, then it's okay. As long as it's legal and not hurting anybody. If I have to put that in there, it's kind of sad, but that's what you have to do with some people. So that's the main thing. I mean, this video is rambling a little bit. I had no idea where this video was really going. I really didn't plan on bringing up about the pandemic and all that other stuff, and give away my secret coffee recipe. But that's kind of it. So, before I ramble on too long or the video shuts off, that's all I'm trying to say. Thank you for a like, share, subscribe. Thank you for stopping in to our family video channel. I wish you all the very best. Be safe through this. And, not really sure what else to say, so practice your Reiki, your healing energies. Never hurts to sage a little, smudge a little. Just at least on smaller quantities. Do rattling and drumming. Do your meditation. Do your meditation breath work. That's trying to say. I started a new word there. Yeah, do some meditation, do some breath work. That breath work's amazing. I wish you could remember to do it every day besides regular breathing. It's amazing how you can breathe better just from practicing breathing in and out, all the way to your belly button through your nose, and then exhaling. So there's just so many other things in life, and the people out there that are physically fit and able to do all that stuff, it's not a big deal. And the other people that want to, breath is the most important thing. If there's too much other stuff going on in your life, just kind of breathe and relax. Take it easy. Smell the roses, smell the coffee, whatever helps you. All right, then. Thank you. Take care to everybody out there.